Well, if I'm stuck here, I better find something to eat. Guemes Island Market. Please use phone to pay by QR code. Okay. PC load letter. This might be my last stream. Where we'll start is actually in my code, because I got to clean up and commit a few things for Pocket Base here. Or Pocket Pages. I've been working on this auth starter, and this is probably the one that we'll use for you. So let me show you what I've been doing. This is a Pocket Pages MPA auth demo. A lot of people coming into Pocket Pages have been asking, like, what's the answer to auth? And if you've followed along on the Pocket Base forums much, Ghani's not in a super big hurry to do multi-page applications at all. He's more of a single-page application guy. So he doesn't want to add features to support multi-page application auth, which is basically old-style cookies. You got to send a cookie across. Because the way the Pocket Base REST API works, you have to send an authentication token in the HTTP headers, but that only works if you're initiating the request from JavaScript. If it's just the browser loading a page, it's not going to send that header, but it will send cookies. So I did a bunch of plumbing in here to get it to look for a cookie or the header. And if the token is in either one, it'll update the authentication just for that page lifecycle, so that we can have multi-page apps. So people have been asking for a demo of it. And with this demo, let me just start over here. I'll just kind of show you how far I've gotten on it, because this might be a good starting point for your marketplace. First of all, this is using something called MVP CSS. Have you heard of MVP CSS?
No.
Okay, so this is a minimalist style sheet for HTML elements. No class names, no frameworks, just semantic HTML, and you're done. So it's great for making minimum viable products, because then you don't get stuck on a bunch of page layout, styling, stuff like that. It intentionally limits you to just really focusing on features. Like, here's the whole, it just works with regular HTML elements, so you can structure your document and it gives you a reasonable layout based on that, and that's all it does. So I have been using this for some of the starter kits, and then when you want to eventually upgrade to like Daisy UI or something like that, you know, after you're through your MVP, you can do that, and you don't have any like class name incompatibilities or anything, because you haven't added any class names. So
that's really nice. That's a great start.
Yeah. So I've been using that, and anyway, it just looks like this. So if I go say register here, I can register with a username and password. I already have one saved in the password manager, so I'll just use it so that my password stays the same. And then you log in, and boom, here you are. It says your account's not verified. So we just got a verification email, though, right here. And we can hit that, and now it says your account has been verified, and you're logged in, and everything's good. So, like, I have all this account stuff working. Change email address doesn't work yet. Log out works. The other thing that I'm working on right now is if you go log in, you can do anonymous login. Now, anonymous users, when they log in, it just creates an anonymous email address and lets them log in using that email address. So like in the database here. It creates just anonymous whatever, right? So if you have an application where you need to track user accounts at least as long as the session, then anonymous accounts make some sense there. But you don't have to use that. It's just a feature that Pocket Pages supports. The one I'm working on right now is so there's a normal password login. Right, we have those users already. Now the one I'm working on is the OTP login, where you just do this and it sends you an OTP code, which I see here an error occurred while submitting the data. So I think we're not going to probably use OTP in your project today, but we can at least start with this starter kit, and then you can, as the starter kit gets the bugs worked out, you can just freshen the files from it. So this,
that makes sense.
Yeah, this is probably the one to use. If you go to Pocket Pages here, the getting started is pretty straightforward. It says to pull the minimal starter, but we're actually going to pull a different starter called auth. So in order to do that, though, I want to commit all these changes I've been making to auth. And then, do I want to do this? Because if I do that, I'm going to have to also commit the changes I've been making to Pocket Pages, because the auth starter uses the development version of Pocket Pages. Maybe what we should do instead, just for today, let's just use the minimal starter that works with the Pocket Pages release. We won't worry about auth today.
Okay.
And maybe we'll come back to that a different day, because now that I'm looking at this isn't quite ready to release. It would take me about 20 minutes to go through and commit all these changes and prep a Pocket Pages release, and I don't want to have to do that while you're sitting here on stream. So I'm going to leave this local stuff just how it is. So right, so we'll just use the instructions right from here. You had a repo over here.
One of my questions was how are you doing auth with your game now? Are you doing any auth?
Yeah. So my game creates anonymous users. And
so it's just basically anonymous users in a session, and that's how it connects you to your player.
I mean, the game has, let me see here. It's got almost 600 anonymous user accounts. They don't even have an email address. So I actually snaked the code that I used for this. I snaked it and put it over into the auth starter kit for Pocket Pages. But then I found out subsequent to that my code was actually woefully incomplete, because I compared it to Ghani's code in Pocket Base, like how he actually creates users and everything, and there are like a bunch of additional checks and all kinds of logic, and that's when I realized, like, oh wow, duplicating all that logic doesn't make a lot of sense. It actually makes more sense to me to just port his JS SDK over so that I can run it inside the JS VM. Then I can use all the regular web API stuff, like all these code samples where he's like new Pocket Base, pb.collection users, request OTP, like all of this works server side now as well. So you can run it in the browser, but you can also run it server side and make these exact same requests, which it's weird. So the browser will make a request to the Pocket Pages or Pocket Base instance. It'll make a web request there. Pocket Pages will answer that, and then as part of processing that request, it might turn around and make actually another REST API call to the same Pocket Base instance, going through the REST API instead to do some work. So the the Pocket client is automatically configured with each request to use that auth token that comes in either from the header or from the cookies. So you can, server side, you can make requests into Pocket with the authorization level that the requesting user has. So it passes it through. So it's kind of cool. And then you can also,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, you can also drop down into raw JSVM if you want to do like unprivileged operations. You can do that too. Or like if you want to run stuff in a transaction, you can always do that. But to me, that level of JSVM is almost like assembly language compared to the power of this SDK client he built. This is like so much easier to make queries and things like that. So anyway, so you had a blank group that you made in GitLab, right? So we need to make a project for that first. Yeah. What should we call it?
I can do that.
Okay.
And I'll just call it, I'll just say, because it's in Guaymas Island Market, I'll just call it, site. It'll just be the site project under GI Market.
Okay, let's see here.
Easy enough. And then I'll make it public. I'm just going to initialize with a README. And it'll be site. Okay, so now there should be a new, if you refresh that, there should be a site project.
Let's see. Refresh. There we go. Okay, site. So let's see. I'll just clone with this. All right, so I'm going to go into my terminal real quick, and I'm going to make a new one called, what are we? Man, I'll just call it GI Market. GI Market.
Yep.
That's fine. Yeah, in fact, I'll just go git clone.
In the Git host, it's Guaymas Market as the project name if you want to do that. So, but GI Market I haven't updated the group name in the GitLab yet. So, yeah. Fine.
Okay. My git clone failed because.
Oh, let me just verify that you have permission from the group.
Well, I don't even know if I have my private key in GitLab or anything. Like, let me just. What happens if I go? Let me do this in a terminal that people can actually see here. So hold on here. We'll just open up a new terminal, and we'll go. I keep all my projects in Pocket here. Now I was going git clone. GitLabs, and I was saying GI Market like that. You can see that, right? Everybody can see that? Yeah. Okay, cool. But when I do that, it says public key failed. So I think what's happening here, ssh git at gitlab.com, I think this is not working. Yeah. So let me go into GitLab here. Where it's probably
in your profile.
Is it in profile? Okay. I don't use GitLab.
And then SSH keys.
SSH keys. Yep. Okay. So then I'm going to go here. I'm going to go cat SSH ID rsa.pub. There we go. That's my public key. I will then add a new key, paste it in here, add key. All right, and then let's go back to the terminal and see if we do better this time. Bingo. There we go. Now we can clone. Yeah, so that's proof that I don't use GitLabs very often. Let's open up a new cursor here for GI Market. Do you use cursor or do you use VS Code?
No, I use VS Code.
Oh man, yeah.
I'm on Windows. Is cursor available on Windows?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually don't know.
I think it's a Mac app, but maybe not.
Download from Mac.
Oh no, I got download for Windows, so yeah, I could check it out. I haven't used it yet.
Dude, if you do much coding,
Worth it.
Game changer. Yeah. You can see it in a lot of my other episodes, but I pretty much prompt my way through programming now. It's good.
I have seen you using it, and I was like, oh man, that is pretty slick. That's just figuring it out and your patterns and just adding and suggesting. And I'm like, all right, that's powerful.
Yeah, it wrote, for example, it wrote all the Pocket Pages docs here, just like all of these docs. I just gave it little bullet points, like make sure you mention this, make sure you mention that. And it wrote all of this. I don't even know if these samples work, though. That's the downside. I might have just a lot of shit in here that doesn't work. But I kind of glanced through it, and it's like, actually, that seems like it will. It's plausible that it might work. But man, it shortcuts so much, just plumbing kind of stuff. So okay. We've got a README here. So the first thing we're going to do is go back to the Pocket Pages home screen. We're just going to copy this minimal starter in. So I'm going to open up a terminal and paste that in. Let's see if it works. Oh, destination directory is not empty. That's okay. I'll just do a little -F to force it. Oh, it wants... Well, maybe it is continuing.
I think it's using it.
Yeah, it did it. Okay, yeah. So we've got the README was overwritten. That's okay.
Yep.
And it's called Guemes. Is that it? Guemes?
Yeah, Guemes. Yep. Guemes Market.
Guemes Market.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just leave that like that. Okay. So we've got in here. In this starter, it's got the Pocket Pages PBJS, and this is just a giant bundle right here. It's about 300K of JS code that is compatible with the Goja JSVM. And what you need to know about this JavaScript environment, it's neither a browser nor a Node.js environment. It's its own environment where you have access to this whole JSVM API right here. This is all the stuff that Ghani exported from Pocket Base. So you have all these Pocket Base calls that you can make, and these are all, every one of these $ ones is a global variable that's available inside the JavaScript environment. But you don't have like standard node modules or anything like that, so you couldn't like import from SF and do a read file sync or something like that, because that's all node modules. Yeah, and the other thing,
buffer, like that's not available, right? Yeah.
Some of it might have buffer in some form, but you got to be careful with all that kind of. If it's not pure ECMAScript, so if anybody's curious, ECMAScript. I would stick with ECMAScript 5. They do have support for some ECMAScript 6, so you can try it. But ES5 is well covered in Goja. So if you have any pure ES5 code, that will run in Goja. What's interesting is promises and async are not part of the ECMAScript standard, so those are not available either. Goja doesn't have an event loop, so when I port packages over, I have to remove all the async stuff, remove all the promises and awaits, and just do synchronous code. And that would
I was watching your conversion of the JS library for Pocket Base, and like finding all the awaits and asyncs and promises and just kind of making them all just like straight function calls with a return.
Yeah.
It's pretty clean. Yep.
Yeah. And I was amazed that it actually worked in the end. Yeah, but It did. So anyway, going back to the code here. So this is just a giant blob of JavaScript that is the brains of Pocket Pages. It controls all the routing and everything that happened. And there's about now, including all the bundled stuff, there's about 11,000 lines of code in here, but not all of that is Pocket Pages. A lot of it is like little libraries that we pulled in. So the code that we're working on is here inside Pages, and it's called index.ejs, and we just have it say hello Pocket Pages right now. So literally you can get started with one file here. So if I wanted to run this locally, just to show that we can, hold on, I have to turn off my other server over there. Okay, if I wanted to run this locally, I would say Pocket Base serve, and I would say the directory is pb data. That's where, if I give it the pb data directory, it will infer that there's also possibly a pb hooks and maybe a pb migrations. It just tells it to use the local directory instead of wherever the executable resides. And I'll go in dev mode here, just so we can see some stuff happening. So when I run this, it's going to pop a new window, and it wants me to sign in as an admin here. So I just kind of have this local host account that I keep, this Ben Allfree one, and it has some password that I never remember. I just use it. It's saved in my password manager. Okay, so at this point we have an admin. We have a Pocket Base admin running locally. Okay, so if people wanted to do this, once you have your admin running locally, you should just be able to go to the home page here and hit it, and look, it says hello Pocket Pages right there. And
awesome. Nice.
It's screaming fast, by the way. Like if you go look at the network here, and we refresh this, took 7 milliseconds to render this page. So it wound its way through all those 8,000 lines of Pocket Pages, or 10,000 lines, whatever it is, and rendered hello Pocket Pages in 7 milliseconds. So it's pretty damn fast.
Yeah.
Some people worry about that because they're like, oh, the JSVM and Goja, and it's slow, and Go is an order of magnitude faster than Goja, and it's like, yeah, that's all true. Even 10 times slower, it's still 7 milliseconds.
Still super fast.
Yeah. And it's a little deceptive too, because this is not blocking, right? Like Pocket Base can handle many, many requests in parallel. So even though each request might take a little longer because of the overhead of the JSVM and everything, the individual pages are not waiting for each other. They're all just being processed in parallel using as many cores and threads as the CPU has. So it's actually like pretty efficient. So anyway, is
that true then too? If you're loading in Pocket Pages, if you're hitting APIs within that API endpoints and pulling data through that, those would all be in parallel basically, right? So they're all individual separate requests that are like streaming in to the,
yep.
Like if you're using HTMX or something and you're querying endpoints and having it stream in information from different API calls, I'm assuming would be in parallel.
Yeah. So each request will block that request thread while it's, say it has to go out and fetch some weather data or something like that. That particular page load will block until the weather data comes back, but the rest of the requests coming in won't be blocked by that.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's highly parallel. The only time in Pocket Base that everything blocks and waits is if you run something inside a transaction. If you have a transaction, because of how SQLite works, SQLite doesn't have row locks or table locks. It only has database locks. So when you start a transaction in SQLite, it blocks everything from reading or writing to the database until that transaction resolves. So you got to be careful that you get in and out of transactions quickly, or if you use them at all. If you do just a normal write to the database, behind the scenes, SQLite will open up a mini transaction, complete that write, and then close it again. And it may even be smart enough to know that when you open a transaction, it may even be smart enough to know that if somebody if somebody's trying to read data and there's no way that any of your transaction operations could have affected that data yet, it may actually be smart enough to like return that even though you're in a transaction. But once you do something that, I'm making this up, but I think this is how it works. Once you write to a table, no others can read from that table until you close your transaction. But whoever is really interested in the guts of that, they can go look at SQLite and see what their transaction rules actually are. Because I might be mixing it up with some optimizations that only happen in like Terso rewrote the SQLite library for their scalable platform, and maybe I'm remembering like something they improved on or whatever. But even as it is, it's really efficient. In one of my previous episodes, when I was talking about Kingdom, it was this one about database locks. I can pull it up real quick for anybody who wants to know. Where is it? This one right here, episode 21, database locks. We go in there and talk a lot about how to get in and out of a transaction quickly, and how you can actually defer some work that needs to be done, but it doesn't have to be done while the transaction is open. It can be done later. So maybe like sending out an email or something like that. Right? But you only want it to send that email if the transaction succeeded, but you still don't want to tie up the transaction for that long. This episode goes over how to push work into a deferred job queue and process it outside the transaction, even though it was created inside the transaction. So, yeah, pretty efficient.
I haven't watched that one, so I'll go check on that one after this.
We're getting better at them. These episodes started out kind of clunky, but I'm starting to find the groove.
Yeah. I mean, you've started. That's the biggest challenge, I think. In a lot of cases, it's just getting something going.
Dude, my mantra is just stream every day. Just stream something every day and fix. Maybe I can fix like a little thing. Like today, you leveled me up by showing me that chroma key thing and green screen backgrounds, and like it's so much better than the hide background thing that I was using. So I'm gonna have a smile on my face all day just just from that.
That's great.
Yeah. So we're back here in Pocket Pages. I just wanted to show everyone that you can run it locally. You can develop Pocket Pages locally and create new pages and do all the same stuff. But I don't actually like to do it this way. I like to do it on PocketHost. So I'm going to go into my PocketHost just to show people. I'd go into the dashboard here. I'd create a new instance. I'd call it GI Market or whatever. But we've already created one, right?
I have one that you have access to. Yep.
Yeah, where did I put that one? Let me go find it.
Maybe it's users on the far left by Kingdom. Oh no, that was when you were showing I think that was.
Yeah, I think I threw it in a different window here. Let me just see what I did with it.
While you're looking for that kind of brought up a question for me is.
This one right here.
Is there an easy way to in a local environment, maybe pull down the latest state from your PocketHost instance and just like spin up a local with that state for testing, like a sandboxy kind of thing, and then when you're done, you can push the changes to the app, but you're working on your live database.
After
push it.
I would love to add that. So I have a little command line tool here called PHIO, that the PocketHost CLI, and this will sync local changes to remote, but it will not automatically pull from remote to local. I'd like to implement like a pull and a push in here. The reason I haven't messed with this too much though is I'm thinking of maybe getting rid of a lot of the FTP support and just going with like GitLab and GitHub repo integration instead, where you just push to the repo and it just like instantly pulls.
Yeah, that would be super slick because that would match pretty much every other tool chain I'm using right now, which is it just watches your repo and particular branch in your repo, and when there's a change, it gets a webhook call and pulls clones and builds and pushes.
Yeah. The only time FTP is like absolutely needed, some people brick their instances. They cannot, it won't boot anymore. And they need to like get in and replace the database file manually, or they get a bad migration in there, and well, that would actually, you could solve that one through the repo. The only situation I can think of is if they brick their instance, they need to be able to get in. But if I made a way through the dashboard, maybe somewhere, like inside the instance details, there could be like data recovery or emergency something down here in the danger zone that allowed you to just like force push a new database or something like that.
I wonder if you could do like a rollback from the last change or something. Like you always just snapshot right before you do an update. You can give yourself like a one last good rollback or something.
Right. Yeah, I could have some kind of reset button in here that just zips up and saves whatever the old one was that you had, and just deletes the database entirely so that it'll definitely run again with a clean slate. Yeah. And then you can download the old one and massage it, and when you get it working right, you can just use the restore backup feature in the PocketBase admin. That would allow me to delete FTP completely.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. Because I like with some of the other stuff like Netlify and some of these, it's basically every time it clones and pushes and updates. It has that whole like deployment history, so you could roll back to a previous deployment, which is just the state of the repo and all the files and everything at that last, whatever time that was. So if you, then you can basically say like redeploy from that point, and it will take whatever that state was and push it back up to your deployment. Something like that. Yeah, it's an interesting idea to try to make it easy to fall back to a last known good state if you make bad choices, like end up breaking your system. Which has happened for me, and like in production, we've actually, missed a spot and then rolled it out. It's like, oh man, crap, we got to roll back to the last one because something's broken now, and it's easy to just do it. Yeah, and we use Cloudflare pages and workers too, and I think there's the same thing. It'll
I was just looking for that. Where did they put that stuff? Is it storage and databases? Is it compute? Here it is, workers and pages.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like the PocketHost pages here, I'm pretty sure I have like a whole rollback history. Yeah, look at all these, right?
Yeah, and I think any one of those, the triple dots to the right will let you like roll back to that. Maybe in a prior one, like not your later.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's the rollback.
Yeah, roll back to that deployment, and then you can it'll just go back to whatever that. I think everything is tied to a particular SHA of your repo, so it can just basically say go clone at this SHA and push that back up.
That would be easy to implement for PocketHost. I'm thinking about the database itself and like what's the
I've never looked at that for PocketBase. Is there like an easy CLI kind of, or a command where you can say, kind of export the state of the database, like all collections and everything, and just snapshot?
Yeah, it's right here in settings.
Like
you go backups, just initialize new backup. You just do it right here. And
so I wonder if that was part of the automatic, when you basically do the backup snapshot right before you do the git push and take a picture of your data and the SHA of that release, and then every time you go, you can just roll back to that prior backup and restore from it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be increasingly possible and desirable, because the next generation of PocketHost that's already running on Fly, it's on almost 40 servers on Fly. That one is going to be a custom build of PocketBase, and it's going to run in some custom container technology that I'm building, so it won't be Docker anymore. And it's literally 1,000 times more efficient than Docker. Like I've done the measurements in terms of like memory usage and speed, launch speed, everything. It's so much more performant that it's worth the trade-offs. The trade-offs are, it can only run one version of PocketBase, so it's going to always just be the latest version. And hopefully we won't have any like big incompatibility, like major upgrade barriers soon anymore, because I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, where, like maybe some nodes can be running a previous version of PocketBase or something like that. But everybody runs on the same version of PocketBase, and it's because it's a custom build of PocketBase. The whole thing's written in Go. There's no more. This version of PocketHost is written in TypeScript. The next version is written in Go, and it will all run in one binary, a multi-tenant, container-driven PocketBase Uber server. Is what it'll be, and so I'll have access to every single PocketBase API there is. And then not only that, but I have the ability to, if I need to, fork PocketBase and make some customizations to it, right? So I could very easily, as I'm building the like whatever the webhook integration is with GitLabs and GitHub, when it gets a ping to update an instance with some new code, it can hit that backup automatically and pull the new code, and everything can be in kind of one tight snapshot that conceivably could be rolled back. I'd have to think through it a little more than just sitting here talking about it, but it's possible to do.
So maybe in the meantime, we have best practices is to come in here, snapshot, then commit to your, do that first before you. I guess your database, your data in the database is a little bit independent from the Pocket Pages code in the repo, right? And where it's hosted. You're not messing with the data necessarily when you're updating your files.
Yeah, I recommend that people find a way to migrate their data and change their data such that they can roll back to an old code snapshot without rolling back the database. So, for example, if you added a column, that wouldn't hurt anything, right? You could roll back to your old code and it just wouldn't know about the new column, and that would be fine. Or if you added a new collection, right? Or, if I'm going to change the format of a column, that's an example of something that's not easily rolled back. So instead, I would create a second new column with the new format, and I would migrate the data over to the new column. And then my rollback would just be concerned with migrating the data back to the old column if I ever needed to roll back. But I try to be really strategic about migrations because I've gotten burned so many times needing to roll back some code, and then it's like, oh shoot, but the old code doesn't work with the new database, and now what do we do? And it creates unnecessary emergencies. So you'll see, on my streams, all my development, and I kind of get into this a little bit here and there, but anytime I'm making a data change, it's something that is backward compatible with old code. And that's particularly important for PocketHost, because PocketHost, I'll make a change, and the only way I know if a feature's really working on PocketHost is to let it burn for a while. See if it improves anything or introduces new problems. And a lot of times there will be a new problem introduced, and then I have to decide, well, is it cheaper or is it more efficient for me to just fix this on the fly right now? Or should I roll the code back and try to fix it locally in some more complicated way? So I try to do a lot of live development as much as I can, and that's what I wanted to show you here. So we've got, I found the Guemis market here, our PocketHost IO. So right now, this is the admin to it, and I'm actually I'm gonna open up I'm just gonna duplicate this tab so that we have a couple. So if I go to the home page, there's nothing here, right? 404. And that makes sense because it's just a fresh project. So I am going to use this FIO tool, and I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to go right here in our local directory. I'm going to go bunx FIO login, and the login is actually, I need to be able to log into your PocketHost IO account to link this up, because your instance doesn't belong to my account. I just realized that.
Yeah, that was one thing I wondered if there's admin sync that ensures your instance always has admin account matching the login of the PocketHost IO. Mm-hmm. But what I wasn't able to find was a way to, I can add Pocket-based super users, but I can't add a PocketHost collaborator that would give somebody else multiple access to this PocketHost IO instance.
Yeah. All we have right now is an FTP login, and it's the same credentials you use to log into PocketHost IO. We don't have the ability to share instances with multiple users. That's come up once or twice before. People have asked for that. But it's actually a fairly rare request, so I just haven't gotten around to adding it yet. So if we want to move forward on this stream, there are two ways we can go about it. We can just temporarily use. I can just make an instance in my account temporarily, and we can play with it there. That's probably the easiest thing to do. What if we just do this? This backup that I just took from your admin, I'm going to download this. Okay, and then I'm going to go into my dashboard here. I'm going to go new instance. I'm just going to call it GI Market. That's available. We'll create that. I'm going to go into the GI Market admin here. I log in as my PocketHost user, go to the database here, go to backups. We're going to restore this backup we just took right from here. Yep, restore. And let's see if it did anything. It didn't like that. Let's try that again. Do I need to? Okay, I guess restoring it is separate here. Type the backup name to confirm. Okay. Gani, making me make sure that I really meant to restore it. Blip, okay, yep. Now I wonder if I can still log in using mine. Yeah, okay, cool. Here we go. So we've just switched it over to mine. GI Market PocketHost. Yep. We'll just do that for today. That's easy enough. And then here I'll just go gimarket.pockethost.io, the homepage, and you see there's nothing there. So now I can go in here. I've already logged in using FIO, but I can do FIO ls, and it will list all of the instances associated with my account. So this is a command line tool to PocketHost, and I see that GI Market is in there. So I'm taking GI Market and I'm going FIO link. I want to link this to GI Market. Let me hide that thing. Link it to GI Market, and that's going to make a little change here in package.json. You'll see there's a PocketHost entry inside package.json, and it says the instance ID is GI Market. So now any PocketHost related commands that I run from here, the first thing it'll do is look for a package.json up the directory tree and see if it finds a PocketHost instance linked to it, and then it'll perform the operation on that PocketHost instance. So we've got it linked now. Now I just start this running here. It's called FIO dev. FIO dev will maintain a constant watch and sync of the files. So you can see right now it's creating, it's uploading. It uploaded index.ejs and it uploaded Pocket Pages EJS. The other thing I can do here is I'm going to go back into the PocketHost dashboard, and I'm going to find GI Market. I want to turn on dev mode. Oh, it is on. It's already on. Never mind. Okay, so then the next thing I can do is go FIO logs, and this will tail the live logs from the server.
Oh, nice.
So I've got live logs going on the server. I've got this one, I'm going to name the terminal dev, and this one I'm going to name it logs, just like that. So dev, I'll just call it dev. That dev's fine. So dev will just constantly watch to make sure that any file changes I make locally here are mirrored over to PocketHost, and then logs will show me what's going on the PocketHost side of things. So it's already mirrored. If I go to GI Market PocketHost.io right now, there it is.
Got it.
I just did my hello world, and watch how instantly it changes. This is what I like. Hello, Guemes Market. Okay, refresh. It's already there.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
that is one thing that if you're using, like the typical sort of DevOps that I do is like I'll be in GitLab. I'll have my main is like production, and it can only be deployed manually or whatever by authorized people, and then we'll create an issue to do some work. We'll create a task branch for that, and then go in and work in that task branch, and then any changes and then I'll do a merge request for that task branch back to main, and then I have like new, usually it's like whatever tooling, like Cloudflare Pages or Netlify or whatever, or even GitLab CI/CD will watch for changes to the branch that the merge request is linked to, and then like rebuild and produce and like give you like that whole like cycle and workflow. And that always has some build time. So whenever you like commit to the branch, it has to like trigger the build and like go build and then produce and deploy, and then you get that. You got to kind of wait for that cycle. The other tooling that I've used a lot to be a little bit more real time is I use Gitpod.io. I don't know if you've used Gitpod before, but what's nice is it'll create an ephemeral workspace in VS Code with, well, I guess you can link to different editor environments as well and have like a local workspace, but it spins up an ephemeral workspace, and you can put in the configuration. You could say, okay, the first task you have to do is like spin up Pocketbase. So, pull the image, spin it up, get that environment going, update your database, or whatever, and then run that environment. Then the next task is maybe to like run dev and get that spun up. And so it can go through this set of tasks and spin up the workspace. So what's nice is then you have a config file, and that anybody in the project, if they use Gitpod, it'll spin it up with all the exact same environment and everything. So it's very consistent from contributor, anybody else who's contributing and using the same tooling. And then it can do the live server. It can give you like a preview URL. You make changes, it updates. It's almost like you're working locally with like, run dev or whatever locally. But it's all in the browser. So you don't actually install anything to your local machine. You're just working in this sort of ephemeral workspace. And then when you're done, you kill it and it shuts down, and then, you don't need anything else anymore. But so that's what I've been doing with like the SpellKit sites and the other sites I've been working on, is when I'm collaborating with other people, is that sort of workflow. This feels very kind of raw and cowboy codey to me. It's almost like back in the day, like hacking on WordPress, and just like hopefully that file change doesn't break the site. So there's a little like nervy feeling to it, which is why I was like, how do you sandbox this thing so I could just go break stuff and then not worry about it nuking my running site. But this is also super fast and powerful, right? Like if you
that's
do it and
yeah, and that's the thing is, like once you get into team environments and you have to have change management processes and build chains and all of that you're talking about, it's a different game. You need tools and that we don't focus on here. This I think is a better environment for like the single founder or maker who's not super technical. They're not going to get into like all the CI tools and DevOps kind of stuff. The goal that I have with PocketHost is to actually keep all that DevOps stuff out. That's why I'm kind of debating on like, do I want to do GitHub integration and GitLab integration? I think I probably do. I think that would make sense, but I'd want it to be this fast for me. Like I would want to be able to commit a change and push it. I wouldn't mind doing that extra step, right? So modify my files locally, save them when I'm ready, commit the change, push it, and then I'd want to jump over to the tab and have it actually like be there.
Be updated.
Yeah. But yeah, this is total cowboy stuff that we're doing right now. And by the way, I've been developing this Kingdom game. I've been doing this on Kingdom the whole time, and the upside is I can ship super fast. I can ship faster than probably anybody, right? And we've been playing Kingdom, and I've seen something wrong in it, and thought like, you know what, I can go fix that right now, and I just jump into the code, fix it because I know where it is. And then I say, okay, everybody refresh your browsers, and we're good to go. So I'm wanting to introduce people to an approach to software development, especially for independent makers, that really minimizes the tool chain and the build chain and CI and DevOps and all that kind of stuff. Because I think for a lot of people, it does start collapsing under its own weight. Like you're in the industry, and that means you work with this stuff every day, and you know what it's supposed to look like when it's working and everything like that. A lot of people don't. Like just had that interview with that guy Heavy Poly. Did you see any of that one?
Or Heavy Draw?
Heavy Paint. Heavy Paint. Yep. He's Heavy Poly on Discord. And he's like, I'm an artist. You did see it because we were talking about, he's got 6,000 lines all in one file, and he just goes and edits that, and it's like that's how he's put it together. But there's something I really admire about, like in some way that's what it should be. It should be accessible to whoever wants to do this kind of stuff. And I've noticed a lot of the Pocket-based ecosystem seems to draw people like that. So it certainly attracted me, and that's been my mindset. And I've been on really huge projects and stuff. And every time I'm on a huge project, I think, man, I yearn for the days when I can just, SSH in and modify a file live and, be a cowboy. I want to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a transition. You're right. Like it goes in, it's like once the thing becomes organizational, then, and you're working with more than one person, then you need some way to synchronize, asynchronously kind of communicate, work on stuff together, test stuff out, make sure it's good, have somebody take a look, maybe do a code review, go, okay, it's all good, let's go ahead and produce that. And then, but what I really like about a lot of the tooling now is that it can get rid of all the local work, right? Like, oh, what's my SSH key and how do I connect to my repo? And then, what do I need to install? What version of what version of like Python or whatever do I have to have installed? And then I'm doing like different environments and switching between environments. It's just a lot. And then if you go project to project, what's my password for this and authentication to this project versus that project? And it just gets to be a big hassle. And like Gitpod kind of gets that out of the way, at least, because then I can go, well, I'm logged into GitLab, and whatever permissions I have to the project on GitLab is what permissions I have in the workspace when it spins up. So
right.
I can just work with that. And that configuration file from project to project is project specific. So I'll get exactly the workspace I need with all the tooling for that specific project, kill it, open up a new project, launch an environment off of that project, and I have exactly what I need for that. So it kind of like makes this very personalized, consistent experience across different projects. But you're right, it does take some configuration and like knowing how the tooling works and knowing like the CI/CD and getting everything set up. And that can be a hassle, especially for people who don't work in it and just want to make a website, do a thing. Like I just want to make this marketplace and have people be able to do a thing. I don't need to know continuous integration and deployment.
And when a project needs to scale, like if your project gets to a point where you need a team and everything like that. And I just actually just got off a consulting project where, for the first probably like 10 years or so, it was just the one guy with his C code, and he'd SSH into some kind of dev server that there was only one in the world that was configured, there was only one working dev environment, and it was this one server. And of course, they had like, he would take a backup periodically and stuff like that. But, he worked that way solo. And then when the team started to scale out, then it was like, okay, DevOps, how do we actually do change management here? How do we, prevent these midnight emergencies and everything else? And but by that time, the thing he built had hit, and it was, making enough money that it could support a team and everything like that. So I think there's definitely like a growth path, and some people who are comfortable with it, they'll start with that stuff right from the beginning. I've seen that. In fact, that guy, Dose Diary, that we just talked to, he's definitely a more sophisticated developer than a lot of the people coming into PocketBase. And, you can see that just by he uses .NET. And I mean, .NET is like very unapproachable from, if you're not a technical founder, you're not probably trying to dabble in .NET. But he's very familiar. So I think it just depends on like what you as a solo founder are personally comfortable managing. Whatever that is, whatever stack that is, I say go for it. And me, I try to minimize the development cycle and keep as many tools out of the build chain as I can.
That makes sense.
That's what speaks to me as a solo founder, and then as projects mature, I start adding stuff in like PocketHost. When I commit to the repo now, it takes it through a build step, and it'll complain if it finds things wrong. Like I think there's a linter in there as well. Because, once I get other contributors in, it's like they might not have the same formatting tools installed, and they'll send a pull request that has like all the formatting in the files has changed, and they didn't realize it because their local editor is configured differently or something like that, so like you do have to eventually build in filters like that, especially as collaboration increases.
Maybe that'll be another chat we can have someday. I might go down the road of what do I need to do to set up Gitpod so it can launch everything I need and set up a like ephemeral development environment for making changes, and then being able to push that up or sync that up to my PocketHost instance. And like, what's that look like? And then that way it's Git backed. I'll have work in the like normal cycle I work in, but be able to create that ephemeral development environment to work live and get things done, and then sync that stuff up. And
so what do they do? They like run a Docker container for you?
Yeah, basically you can point to like a Docker image, or you can just launch like I think the default is like Ubuntu 20 or something like that as its default environment. And then you can run some set of commands. So you could say, okay, go, install this command line tool, or, whatever you need to work with in that environment, install that stuff up. If it's all in package JSON, it can just like npm install at the beginning and get everything you need, or bun, whatever you've got in that environment. And then, so every time you spin it up, it goes through the task list and just does whatever you need it to do automatically to like get all the bits and pieces you need and spin everything up. And then you're just at an editor with a terminal, and you're running as if it's local, essentially, but it's in your browser, so you don't have to mess with local setup.
Yeah, that's cool.
Maybe another day. I'd be curious how it would work. So
managing dev environments is a constant. It's a holy grail that people are always after. Right. Well, that would be interesting. Anyway. We could do another one of those, another stream. I mean,
it'd be fun sometime, like setting it up in Gitpod. But okay, so
yeah, totally.
For this one, I mean, and one thing I noticed, we haven't even really talked about what this Glemis market thing is. I don't know if it matters to anybody watching what we're trying to accomplish, but so this is I live on a little island. Glemis is an island in the Pacific Northwest in U.S., and the goal here is we want a little local kind of market where there's lots of people on the island who have chickens and have eggs and make flowers and vegetables and firewood and just stuff, right? Just stuff that they're producing, and they want to make it available, some for free, but many people charge for whatever that is. So it's eggs are available, and they're $5 a dozen or whatever, and that's available down the street at the little stand at the end of their driveway. And the hard part right now is knowing who has what, where, and when's it available. If they had some, are they still there by the time you drive over there? Would you even know? Like, has somebody else went and already grabbed them? So the idea with this is to create kind of a community map of all the locations where things are available, to let those producers put that information into the system and say, hey, I have 3 dozen eggs available, or I just put out some vegetables, some zucchini or whatever. And then for consumers, for us who aren't producing that stuff, to be able to look at that and say, well, does anybody have eggs, or does anybody have vegetables available, or who has firewood? And then be able to see those locations, what's available, what are the current quantities. And if I go take something, like let's say I go pick up a dozen eggs, I can say thanks to the producer, say I grabbed a dozen eggs, thank you. And maybe I transact with them through Venmo or something directly. That information's available for the provider. So this system wouldn't really handle the financial transaction, but it would at least allow me to kind of indicate a change in the quantity for the item that I took. And then other people would just see that like instantly, like, oh, there were 3 dozen, now there's 2. And so maybe I don't, I better go hurry now and go get the other one, or things are unavailable now. Don't waste the trip. And so it's to help really just facilitate communication between producers of items and consumers on the island and make it really easy to figure out what's available. I could also subscribe. That was one of the goals of this system, is like subscribe to either particular categories or to particular producers. Somebody that I always want to get their eggs, let's say. I know eggs are a big buzzword right now, but it is one of the, like, socially, but it's also one of the common things that are available on the island. So lots of people with chickens. So I can like be notified if there aren't any, but then somebody added a few dozen. I could get like a ping that says, or a notification that says, hey, there's 3 dozen eggs available at the stand, and I can go react to that, or go let somebody know, hey, can you go pick up or whatever. So that's kind of the goal of this application, is to create this, sort of transactional marketplace where people can share what they have available and go pick that up and say thanks. And so that's the data model that's in here, is kind of around that concept of like, there's users, the users have information, they can subscribe to like particular categories, tags, or providers. The categories are kind of high-level labels for different things, like produce or whatever. There's items people can create in the system and tag. There's all that. So that's the point of what I'm trying to accomplish here. And because I'm not familiar with the stack, I really appreciate the opportunity to like, okay, let's spin something up and like start from scratch and see how we can make something like this. So anyway, that's a little background if watching, like why we're even messing around right now.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's a neat idea, kind of a little community app kind of thing. I tried to push my changes and I wasn't able to. It said it's a protected branch or something. Is it? Well,
okay, let me see.
Let me see what it said. You're not allowed protected branches. Oh, well, okay, so I'll just do this. I'll go.
I can unprotect main too. I see it's protected. Let me allow. I'll allow developers and maintainers to push and merge. So, okay, it should work now.
Okay, I'll try it here. Just thinking about it. Yep, it worked. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So I just did an initial commit to it. I'm going to go back. So Pocket Pages has a bunch of different starter kits. Now, I just showed you the minimal starter kit, which just dumps an index EJS with just a hello world in it. This one here, called MVP, uses that MVP CSS project. I'm going to do this one instead, and we'll do the same force that we did before. This will overwrite our index EJS, and it's made a change to package JSON. I think it probably overwrote everything here. So we're going to change this README back to how it was. Yep, and keep that change. And then we're going to, in package JSON, we'll call this Gwem's Market there, and then this Pocket Base thing or the PocketHost config, we want that in there too. So it overwrote a couple things for us. That's why I wanted to have the commit done there. And then now we have a different index page. We'll call it Welcome to Gwem's Market. It's interesting. Cloud's already learning what everything is called, just as we're you like the code suggestions. So all of this is going to be live already on PocketHost. We'll just refresh here, and boom, now we have something that's got a little bit of styling to it instead. And if I go in here, so right now there's an index EJS, right, and it's got everything in it. Now, in order to change this into a multi-page app, what we really want instead is we want to create a layout EJS, which manages the layout for all the pages. And then most of this is going to go into layout, but right here, we're going to have a little escape here that says slot. And that's just a variable name the default slot is where it will insert the content of whatever the page is that got rendered. So that changes index to just the contents of the index page, and everything else is in layout. Okay, so now when I refresh, there won't be any difference. But if I create a second page called Hello EJS, and I just say hello from Buenos Island. Oh, let's say let's call it about. Now, if I go to /about, we have the same general layout, but it's using the about content instead. One thing to know about Pocket Pages that I like is that you can actually do markdown files instead. So you can say about Buenos Island Market. Buenos Island Market is. How did it know that? How did it know
crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah, it was founded in 1905. Okay, whatever.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
Yeah, so there we go. We just did a markdown page, and Pocket Pages will do that too. So when I do instructional stuff, or just kind of like text heavy kind of stuff, I will I'll usually use Markdown. And if you go to the Pocket Pages site, all of these pages, all of this documentation is written in Markdown files. You can see it. Let me switch over to the Pocket Pages project here. You can see it right up in Docs. I was in the wrong view. I was wondering what was going on there. Yeah, inside Docs, there's PB hooks, pages. Docs is its own Pocket Pages site. So inside the Pocket Pages repo, I have a Pocket Pages site named Docs that deploys, that implements the whole Pocket Pages, marketing and documentation site. So it's got splash page, it's got a main group. Here's like /docs, so pocketpages.dev/docs is right here. And then look, here's all the markdown. So all of these are AI assisted, where I just gave it general notes and it went to town. So, all right. Here on the home page, so how's this thing going to work? They're going to like scan a QR code or something like that?
Yeah. So I guess the home page would be kind of a landing. My idea right now is there's a public-facing landing page. Might have a map of providers by address or location. And maybe you can't, from the public side, see all the item details for every location, but you can at least see, hey, welcome, go ahead and create an account. I don't want really anonymous accounts on this, just to kind of minimize, I guess, kind of try to minimize spammy stuff. But so it'd tell you what to do, create an account, how it works, just a general overview on the homepage, and then basically sign in. And then once you're signed in, then I think then we have like probably different ways to sort and filter data. Maybe there's a couple different views of like what are all the items, like by category kind of thing, or by location, just looking at the map, and you can click on locations and look at the details for those locations or something. So there's down the road, I think the UI UX of this will probably evolve, but at a high level, I just really need to know, I would need people to be able to modify their user account or their profile with like some of their information, to be able to create a provider in the directory, to be able to say, hey, I'm somebody who has a stand and these are the kinds of, then I can add stuff to it, be able to create items in the system, and then eventually be able to have a user code to an item and say, or I've taken one of these from a provider, and sort of transact. And so that was the transactions, was tracking those exchanges. The categories and tags are really just sort of list references to try to unify, like, if somebody's already made a tag, you can use an existing tag or create a new one. Same thing with categories. And then notifications. And so categories and tags are really used just in items to identify an item or to refine the description of an item.
Yeah.
That only providers can create items under their provider location, essentially. Notifications is just a way, it was kind of logging when alerts were sent to people, like who got a notification, and then transactions were a way to record that, again, like this user took this item from this provider, and about how much it was or whatever, like just sort of tracking the exchange. And that was all, I think, the first version of this I need.
So let me put on my software consulting hat for a moment.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got users. That much makes sense. So a provider is somebody, say, who like owns a farm or something like that, right?
Anything. Yep.
Anything.
Somebody who knits hats, whatever they want to sell or give away on the island.
Right. So you could knit hats and have chickens, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So.
And I've tied providers to, it's almost more like a location on the island. So it's connected to a user, and maybe they have a name like, my wife knits hats. So she might want to use her provider name, which is Thunderfoot Creations, right? And a little bit about them and an image or whatever, and the address, maybe their website, that kind of a thing. How you can pay them, that kind of thing. So the provider is linked to a user, but it's more about who, where the stand is or how you get their stuff or how you pay them or whatever. So it's like additional details about that.
So my wife just knit me a hat that I wanted to share with the audience there. That's what the coloring looks like. Yeah, we're having a warm winter though, so I'm more just wearing it for fashion. But yeah,
that's great.
It's a labor of love. Okay, so I'm wondering if there is, maybe this could be set up almost like an Etsy shop that has locations, right? So you need locations because locations have inventory. Right?
The provider is who has items, not necessarily the user. But a user owns a provider, one or more providers.
One or more. Okay, that was going to be my next question. So multiple users.
I wasn't really sure about that either. Like if I wanted more, could multiple users manage provider information? So that's why I set that to multiple, because I was like, you could have more than one, like kind of admin for a provider. Like if you had, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or it could just be a single user maps to a single provider.
I'd probably name this owner, and there could only be one owner of the provider.
Yeah, that's probably better. Yep.
Yeah, and then there could be a separate one called,
maybe like admins or something. And
admins
it could be a list
or
of people
contributors.
Who can modify. Because the idea was that maybe it's not just one person could add items to the shop, right? It could be whoever the owner has authorized as a user to add items. But that's maybe a phase 2 thing. Maybe phase 1 is there's just an owner and they can add items and that's it. So yeah, I like that. Maybe just set that user to owner and do a single instead of multiple for the users table.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm pretty sure internally PocketBase stores this as an array of user IDs in this column, like a JSON array.
That's right. That's what that's at least what it looks like when I've queried it for a different system.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it does. In other words, it doesn't create a junction table behind the scenes. and do a join based on that. It collects, it stores the IDs in this column. So, and that's probably pretty fine for most applications. You won't get
Yeah, I mean, we're in the
overwhelmed with them.
order of, like, this island has like 600 residents. It's not like we're going to have millions of records in this thing or anything. So I think it should be pretty good.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So a provider is a location. I see like address, email, URL. I'm curious if it might be better to split providers and locations so that a provider can have multiple locations.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that too. Because there could be instances here where, you know, the same person that creates stuff, they have something at the end of their driveway, but then they also like have some stuff at the store. There's a general store, maybe they sell their stuff there too, and somebody might want to go buy it. But then it's really where I wanted to be where transactions could occur. Like, this is where to go to get the thing, to get the item. So maybe there could be multiple locations. I don't know if anybody, at least right now, has more than one stand or more than one place where you can go pick up their stuff. I think right now it's just one. The other idea here is that providers could deliver. So, like, you know, that could be something worked out in the transaction. Is like, hey, I want to buy the thing, but they might be able to say this item can be delivered, and then somebody could say, hey, can you bring it to my house? And then that's part of the transaction information. But
yeah. Well, I guess users could just create a different provider profile for every location. And
that's right, because there is a one-to-one there. So, or I mean, not a one-to-one, a one-to-many.
Yeah.
It could be multiple provider locations for the same user. Yeah.
Yeah, and then providers own items, right? Is that how we're doing it? So down in here somewhere. So where's your? Do you have an items relationship here?
I have not. I think it's in the items points to provider. Yeah. Single. An item can have a single provider.
Yeah. And that's going to be, I know that one for sure is just an ID that gets stored in that column. You might want it the other way, just because when you go to query a provider, you can say, load this provider record and load all the items.
That's a good point.
Maybe you want that. Maybe you want it both ways.
I guess if we did where there could be more than one provider for the same item, and that doesn't really make sense. I almost think of like items existing physically. You know, these are like physical things in space and time. Like, where are they? Where would you go get the thing? And you wouldn't have that thing exist in two locations at the same time. So, but you could potentially, if I'm the admin, I could say, well, I'm going to move this item from one provider to another. Like, I've moved where it is. It's over here now.
It kind of depends on how if you anticipate people needing to manage multiple providers that provide the same item, then you may want sort of like a centralized item database so they're not having to duplicate their information.
Yeah, I think in this case, this is really a physical place. Where is the dozen of eggs, or where is the bundle of firewood?
Yep.
It's here. It's at this provider location, and it can't be another one in a different one, right? It's only in one place. So.
Yeah. Well, some items, eggs and firewood, you're probably going to reuse, right? You know, like.
Well, but I've always thought these items probably are provider specific. I don't mind if we have 5,000 egg entries in the items list because they're coming from different people over time. You know, I almost think of those items as being that'll probably just accumulate, and either the thing is available. There's either quantity one or none for that item for that provider. So
Yeah.
that might be duplicated.
Well, and then you run into the question of how searchable this thing is. Like, if you want to search for eggs, is it going to do that by keyword or tag or?
Well, I kind of thought that would probably fit down in a category of like produce, eggs. So you would search for all items in the eggs category.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it would, or in the produce,
Yeah.
whatever.
Right. So as long as the item is associated with tags and categories, then it'll be discoverable just by browsing
items. And I kind of wanted to be able to like show me all the active items in this category or with this tag, and then it would give you the list of everything that's available right now.
Do you want it to be able to tell you how far away from you certain items are? Like search.
I think if we know where the provider is, we could show it on the map. Maybe we could have a map view.
Yeah.
That shows.
Yeah, because I mean it's just an island.
You know, like I know where I am and I know where these dots are, so I can see where.
Yeah.
That would add a level of sophistication. If we could at least just show things on a OpenStreets map or a Google map or something of like pins at particular addresses or something, I think we're like good enough. Which is why I have an address in the provider, so that they can, if the provider who has these items, the items relate to a provider. The provider has an address. You can see the pins for the addresses and for the providers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Just looking through here.
Yeah.
So this seems like a pretty well thought out organization. So the first thing you would need then is for people to be able to create an account. Is that right?
Yeah, they have to create a user account. Then users can create provider records, one or more, or none, 0 or more, only if they have things to provide to the community, right? And then, but not every user is a provider,
right?
So, yeah.
But anybody could be. They could just say like, create.
I want to provide something to the community. Create a provider record. Put in your address, your name, your whatever details are important for that location, your address. Yeah, and some of that stuff would be required. Like I think the location, the address of where somebody could pick a thing up is required in a provider record, for example. Like,
yeah.
I would.
So let's just,
unless they're delivery only, like you could think through all the exceptions, I guess, but maybe that's a later thing.
Let's just play with something then. This is pretty bleeding edge, but I'm going to pull in our off.
Yeah, you were kind of showing me that earlier.
Starter kit. Yeah, let's just see what happens when we pull that in. So this has a different layout to it already. And it has a little bit of like a header and then inside here you have all the auth stuff, and inside account you have all the account stuff. As long as you don't mess with these too much, you should be able to pull updates to this starter kit as I kind of finish the features of it. But let's go back to the start here. So this time we have the ability to actually register, and it looks like I can just log in here, and it created my it created my account. Let's see, am I in here? Yeah, here I am. So nice. I just created an account that easily. Boom, and now in the account menu here, all it says is like, just the very basics. So
yep.
I'm gonna keep developing this starter kit, but let's just go back to the home page here. where we have our homepage, and we want to say we want to become a provider, right? Well, okay. So do you want people to be able? Do they have to log in just to even see stuff? Because the way I think
public side, I would like to show like the providers map, and to show basically where all the providers are on the map, and maybe what categories of items those providers have. I don't know if I want to get down into the items detail, because I do sort of want to drive people toward using the application as it's intended, which one of the critical sort of buy-ins for using this thing is that you have an account, and when you go take a thing, you update that you took a thing. You say thank you and what your quantity adjustment was, because it kind of depends on that consumer feedback loop of saying like, hey, thanks, I took a dozen eggs, to update the quantity, to notify the provider, to like, there's kind of some operational stuff there. And if I just let people go, oh, there's eggs over here, I'm going to go take a dozen. Like, I kind of want to not just let that happen out of band, right? I want that to be part of the like information flow within the application. So maybe just like, hey, there's 15 providers in the system, log in to create an account and be able to find what's available where, and drive people into participating through the application. So, but at a top level, it would at least show there's locations that have stuff, and here's where they are. And I think I really need to communicate on the homepage the value add for participating, right? Like, hey, if you do this and you participate as intended, this adds a lot of value to the community to be able to know when things are available and how much is there. And so, just trying to tell people why be a good citizen through this application, right? Because it's going to help everybody have better information to act on.
Yeah. So are you thinking of using like Google Maps or Open Maps, or who?
I'm more familiar with the Google Maps. I've used that before for some applications, but OpenStreetMaps or whatever, I think it's fine. I'm okay with either option, and they're both relatively easy through their API call to push information into it and get back a map with all the pins and stuff. So,
yeah. I'm curious about one thing with this MVP CSS. Is it responsive at all? It doesn't say it's responsive.
Yeah, that's one thing I really liked about, I've used Tailwind in the past, is that it's super easy to specify your breakpoints and your styling based on, pixel widths and stuff. So
yeah, because I just put it in responsive mode here, and I was noticing, well, it's just getting smaller. I don't love that. So I might actually be tempted to switch over to Tailwind or something like that earlier.
The other thing I really like about Tailwind is I really like style in the component, so I can see just by looking at the class, just figure out, okay, what is it doing here, without having to go look in some CSS file somewhere and figure out, based on some semantic or BEM, class name or whatever, what it's doing. So
yeah, Daisy UI is my favorite, and that's a Tailwind.
That's probably what I would use as a Daisy component library. I'm familiar with that a little bit. So
yeah, so if it's Daisy we want, let me just make a little branch here called styling. We'll just, for now, we're just gonna whip all this. I don't care. We'll merge this branch later. But there is a starter called Daisy UI. Let's pull that starter. It's gonna again overwrite some stuff for us. We lost we lost Pocket Pages in here, or PocketHost. PocketHost project ID was GI Market. Okay, that's fine.
And just to be clear, when I, in this repo, when I want to work with my own PocketHost instance, I'll just change that to be the Gwemmas Market.
Right,
for the
exactly.
project ID, and then it'll work for me. Okay.
Yeah, so now we're going to start up a process here to watch the CSS file and build it, okay? So I'm going to go bun run dev CSS. Oops, bun install first. Got to install all the dependencies here. So now we do have a little bit of a build chain just to run CSS. So we'll just leave this here, just running CSS. We have to git ignore node modules, of course. Right, let's see here. No, I didn't want that. I just wanted that. Okay, node modules is out of there now. All right, so let's take a look at what it changed here. It changed the layout quite a bit, where it's got some different nav and things like that, but ultimately it does boil down to there's just a slot right here where all the content is. So we'll call this bonus market, and then this is actually auth login. Okay, and it looks like we have some docs in there or something that we don't care about. Index is just ready to rumble. Okay, so let's see what changed here. There we go. So nice. Now we're a little more mobile friendly, I suppose, and we've got this little thing with right now it doesn't lead anywhere, but just a little side thing. What do you call that? A tray. And then when it's in desktop mode, you have the menu, the nav across the top. So
I suppose you'll probably want a little bit of that conditional logic with your auth variable to show like whether you should register or log in like you had in the other up in the menu. Yep.
Yeah, so what this did is it left account and auth just the way it is. So that's all of our brains for the auth logic. So that should actually still work. I should be able to.
I thought you had more in the menu template with like an if auth to show whether or not to log in or register.
Yeah, that was in if you look at the.
It's in the layout, right?
Oh yeah, it's in the layout, right? Yeah, right here. This stuff, this if auth stuff. So maybe we'll take this and wait, there's more to it. We'll take this and put it
just where that login link is up above.
Yeah, maybe that's good. Yeah, we're gonna have to do a little bit of massaging
inside that
here.
LI.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe here. Let me just paste this in here and see what we're dealing with. So we probably don't need this one. So account and log out, or log in, register. Yep. So like that, and then this
LI account.
Yep. It did it for me right there. So let's refresh and see what that did. It's here. Yeah, there we go. Account and log out. Now, if I go to account, it's just gonna. There's no styling on that one yet, right? It's so. But that again, that's the nice thing. Starting with that MVP CSS, we don't have to convert any styling. We just have to style it. Log out should take us back to the home page. It does. Oh, there's a login or register. Yeah, so these actually we want on the same line right here. Oh, they are on the same line. Okay, so
you might need like a no white space or something, or
yeah, I think maybe we'll just make it two separate list items there. There we go. register, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can log in right there. Boom. I'm back. I'm logged in.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah,
And so that you're doing with that auth, that's happening server side.
It's happening server side. Yeah.
So
I'll show you.
It's doing cookies or tokens or whatever and passing it through. That's great.
Yeah. So if you look at the network tab, here's, for example, just this login request. You'll see that it's the response. In the response, it sets a cookie. See that?
Perfect.
That cookie? So now that cookie is stored, so any subsequent requests send all of the cookies over, and one of those cookies is called PBAuth. So that's how it passes that stuff back and forth.
Yeah, so I was making a SvelteKit application with PocketHost backend, and I had to do all that in like the hooks.js file, kind of handling that server side, check it, and then set the locals and like get that as a cookie, and then like set the cookie and all that. So
Yeah.
That's great. This code kind of handles all that server side auth logic, and then how does it pass the data from the server side down into? I guess it's just in the cookies. So then the client side Pocket-based stuff is just checking cookies for the PBAuth cookie.
Yeah. So when you make a request, to say like to the home page right here, the request headers, inside the request headers, it's got the PBAuth cookie that it sends over to the server. Then inside Pocket Pages, we'll just jump into Pocket Pages real quick. When it gets a request, way down here, it calls this thing called set auth from header or cookie. So it's going to look at both. But here's what it does. It finds the token and it prefers the header. If it sees an authorization header, that trumps the cookie. But it will look both of those places. And then if it has a token, it will attempt to parse the token into its data. Did you know these tokens are parsable? Have you ever tried that? Like if you grab this token right here and you go JWT.
Oh, they're JWT tokens, right? So the data's in there.
Yeah, I'll show you what's actually in there. So I just pasted that, and so the header, it says what kind of algorithm it used. It used the HS256, and then this is the data. It has the user ID and the type of. I haven't really looked too closely at this. It looks like it has enough information to know which table it should look up the user in, when it expires, what the user ID is, whether it's allowed to be refreshed, that kind of stuff. And then it has a signature, right? So this can't be forged, because if you were to change this signature if you changed it at all, you'd still be able to read this data, but the signature would not match anymore. So
yeah, I see that below there says invalid signature. Yep.
Whereas now, does it say valid signature again? I don't know. Anyway, that's what's in the JWT. So it's looking for that. It parses that into its constituent parts, and then it saves the this looks almost like front end stuff right here. pb.authstore.save saves the token and it saves the user record and if it's not valid, it clears it out. And then the last thing it does is it sets the auth field of the request object to the user object associated with that token. So So on server side, you can inspect the auth object if you're looking for some server side filtering. That's where we get like that check that we had. Let's go back to GI Market right up here. If auth, it's the same thing. This auth request variable is injected into this template so that we can reference it. So that auth is getting set right here at the beginning of each request. And it's getting set by either the cookie or the authorization header.
Great.
And then
that has that data. So if you did like auth.id, you'd get the user ID or whatever is in that token, right?
Right.
Because it's like destructured it or put it into the
exactly.
the auth variable. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the Pocket-based JS client by default is set to whatever the token was that came in with the request, right? So this is set to the same permissions that the authenticated user has. So if you were to try to make a call here to list a collection, say like you wanted to get a list of items. Well, currently your API rules are locked down, so it says super users only. So if you used the Pocket-based JS client, that's going to send a REST API request authenticated as the user who made the request. They're not a super user, so it would not succeed. If you wanted to use the JSVM API to make a direct query to the database, you could do that. But this allows you to drop down to super user level access to Pocket-based through the JSVM API if you want to. But if you want to make user level queries to your database server side, you use the Pocket-based client here.
Mm-hmm.
So
nice.
Okay, so where are we? Right, we were just talking about authentication. Right, so you have a little account here. I suppose this is where you could add some buttons like create a new provider profile.
And edit their profile, like their the other user data that they might have, like their name, their avatar, whatever, like their phone number, any of the contact phone. Some of the other user fields would be editable through here.
Yeah. Now, I'll warn you, if you do decide to use Pocket Pages and you do start developing this, there's a chance that you might be the first one in to try certain features. Like, say you wanted to let them upload images, right? I have not tackled a use case in any of my projects where somebody needs to upload an image. So that would mean that you'd be pioneering that feature, and it would probably be good to talk together about how to make that as accessible and as well documented as possible for users. Certainly one way you could do something like that is you can still use the Pocket-based client side as well, and you have all these code samples of how to this is downloading and fetching files. Like, how do you upload a file? That's weird. Files are uploaded via the records API. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there must be...
You'd update the user record with a upload.
There must be something in here where he talks about how to do...
Like an upsert.
Files?
Well, yeah, because that was another thing I was looking at. Is one of the benefits I think is that there's storage associated with this, right? So you need some way of like uploading the image to the storage location, and then like API files on the left, right on the web API reference.
Yeah, but it says files are uploaded.
It
says that they're uploaded through the Records API, but then when you go to the Records API, there's no example of how to upload a file. So, yeah. But I mean, this is what I'm saying is like things are a little dicey. Like down here in the JS hooks, I thought I saw something about files in here, retrieving uploaded files. Yeah, so this is server side now, JSVM, but you can say find uploaded files. But then how you store them is a bit of a question. Yeah, so we'd have to kind of step through how to do it, and then we'd write some Pocket Pages documentation for, how to manage file uploads. So that would be an example of one area where, Pocket Pages hasn't gotten there yet. But once everybody starts using it for their various little projects, they're going to bump into all the boundaries of Pocket Pages and expand those, So that's what's happening. Yeah, from here, I would say you probably, I don't know where you would want to start next, but you were talking about like Open Maps or Google Maps or something like that. I was kind of envisioning that people would land on the app, and I mean, if it's me, like probably the first thing I want to see is like sort of a shopping tool. Are you still live with me? I just saw I just saw some weird notice pop up on my screen. Seems okay. Yeah, something that like says where everything is or lets me search for stuff. So
yeah, I think that would be like the dashboard page of after you've logged in. There would be kind of a dashboard or there's like an authenticated page, like once you're in, that's not necessarily the home page, right? So maybe it's like, women'smarket.com/home or some, I don't know, market or something, dashboard, whatever. That would be your, once you're authenticated, you'd want to be on that page. But the general public, they're more going to get just the value pitch, right? Like it's almost like a product landing page. Like, hey, if you use this thing, this is what it has in it. This is how it works. If you could, participate in this, there's all this value. Sign up now, right? Try to get them onboarded. Once they're signed in, then they're going to just be seeing, like you're saying, almost more like probably there's some search function that search through items, category listing or faceting and filtering, maybe a map, view items by map or something. So that part, I think, is still a little fuzzy, at least in my mind, of exactly what that side would look like. But yeah, I agree with what you would expect to see as a user of the system. The first thing is like, I need to find the stuff. I want to find the stuff I like or I'm looking for.
I think those are
more
just
than one way at it.
Kind of decisions that you need to make as you go along. So I'm going to make another commit to main here saying added auth and Daisy UI, so that you have kind of a, like, at least a bit of a starting point. And then I think my next suggestion would be to sort of compare this against something like SvelteKit, which, obviously is a lot more complete. But SvelteKit and Next.js and Astro all have a little hidden problem, which is you need to typically run your own backend node server for those as well. So
yeah, and what I'm using right now is Cloudflare workers to handle the server side kind of auth requests and everything, and in the hooks.
Yep.
In the SvelteKit hooks JS and all that server side stuff runs there.
Yeah.
And And then, but then I was doing a lot of client-side authenticate, like using the normal JS library for PocketBase to get the, hey, give me a list of all the. It's a different project that I'm working on. We have, if you go to glamis-island-ferry.com, it's a site I built in FeltKit, and it's not released yet, but there's, one of the things that we have happen. A lot of this is all just kind of client-side. There is actually the ferry cams. This is kind of a funny side story. These are provided by the county, by the Skagit County. Somebody in county IT for their web server who hosts these images. For years, this was never an issue, but recently they made a change where the only way to load the image is if it was coming from the referrer was the county website.
Yeah.
So I had to make basically a worker function server side that would let me set the referrer in the request so I could get the images.
Yeah.
So these images come from like a Cloudflare worker that's essentially behind the scenes, like requesting it with the right referrer so that I can get the data and then render these images in. So there's like a data request to get these, and that updates every few minutes or whatever, every minute. Anyway, there's a new URL. It's not in here yet, but whenever we have a haul out or if our main ferry's down, there's a third party who will come and like pick up vehicles from the island on like a little transport boat, right? The little cargo boat. So they'll come up and like land on the beach, and you can drive on his boat, and he'll haul you over to the other side, and it's like $50 a person or whatever. So I made essentially a request and scheduling application, but that requires user authentication. So I have a PocketBase or a PocketHost instance that has that database that has like the requests and the scheduled times and all the stuff that you can see if you're logged in. And then I'm using essentially like if you're authed through PocketBase, if you're signed in, then you can see you can see the times, but you can't request a time or create new entries or anything unless you have certain levels of permissions and stuff. So I kind of went down that road with the SvelteKit side of things of like doing server-side authentication in the hooks and then passing that through into cookies and then using that as the request back on the client side. So that was going to be actually one of my questions with the Pocket Pages is I'm assuming it'd be the same thing on client side. You could still use the JS library to do client-side requests with your auth data, but with your user ID.
Right. So there's a function that's called load from cookie, and you would do pbauth store load from cookie pbauth right here, and that would enable you to use all the client-side stuff. When it comes to SvelteKit and Next.js and Astro, it kind of gets into a split unless you want to do static site generation, which that's what we do for like the PocketHost dashboard. This is all SSG, and it uses the PocketBase JS client to communicate with the mothership. There's no Node.js server behind this at all. It's just straight to. But as a consequence of that, I have. Let me pull it up here. PocketHost isn't open. Let me see. Let's see.
So I have a PocketBase directory under my lib directory with an auth.svelte that uses context in SvelteKit world so that it's session specific.
Yeah.
And then and does all of that.
Yeah, see what's happened to me because I don't have a Node.js backend. I have this whole thing that I call the mothership, and it has all these different handlers in here, and this is all JSVM code. So like I have handle instance create, and there's a bunch of JSVM in here, handle delete, handle update, right? There's all this stuff going on so the mothership has a whole bunch of custom application logic in it. and I'm handling it there in JSVM instead of where I would normally write it in like if I were doing SvelteKit, I would have my node server figure all that stuff out. But instead, I chose to go closer to the metal and implement all that business logic inside the JSVM. This is kind of what inspired Pocket Pages, because after I built a server-side application in JSVM, I was like, well, this is really hard for a lot of reasons. And so then, I started building Pocket Pages as an answer to that. So I think it has some potential. I prefer it over the split personality problem that I would otherwise have to have, running a node server and a Pocket-based server. In fact, right here in the PocketHost docs, there's way down at the bottom here, server-side Pocket Base is an anti-pattern. I wrote this article about why I don't like to generally it's an anti-pattern, and why I don't like to call into Pocket Base from another server. Not saying it can never happen. There are reasons for it, but a lot of people end up in this quagmire of, I'm trying to use SvelteKit, but now I realize I need to forward my authentication through the node server over to the Pocket-based server, and people get very confused with it. So I'm trying to make Pocket Pages an answer to that. But yeah, what I would suggest from here as a next step for you is check out what we've put in your repo here and play with it a little bit and see what it feels like to you. Maybe it's a good fit. Maybe it just depends on where you're coming from. I think, for a lot of people who aren't super technical, they'll find Pocket Pages to be much more approachable than the alternatives. But on the other hand, you might be comfortable with something already, and however you can ship, I say that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm really interested in trying to keep it all, like one issue I have now is, how many different systems do I have to spin up to get the job done, right? I need whether it's Pocket Base, with PocketHost or Supabase or whatever, Firebase or whatever. I need or Lucy or whatever. I need some kind of an auth provider that I have to be doing authentication through to get permissions. It seems like having your auth with your database is nice because it's all in one system. You can use that. You're not having to go between systems to pass tokens or do anything to manage that separately. So that was a benefit of keeping auth with database. And that was one of the nice things with Supabase, for example, is auth in the database and everything's all there and you can use it. So I really like that. And then it was this is a fairly limited, at least each instance is fairly limited geographic region and stuff. So I don't need global edge functions and all this stuff to operate everywhere. I just need something kind of close by to respond and have it be fairly performant. So and do I need to set up Netlify or Vercel or Cloudflare Pages, or do I set up another one of those things, or can I just host it within the same instance where everything else is, right, and kind of go more monolithic? So that's where I'm starting to lean in this direction, is for this scale of application, just having it in one system really feels nice. So then it's just replacing the functionality, well, how do I handle auth server side? And how do I handle whether somebody prefers dark mode or not, or whatever their preference, so that I don't get page flashing on reloads. And I want that to handle that setting to come from a cookie or something, or in the server. So or
local storage or something. Exactly.
So that it renders right and doesn't have to then go JavaScript side go, oh, you meant dark, okay, and now flash my whole page. I want it to come in like it's supposed to be. So that's the bit now, is just mapping kind of what I know from SvelteKit, because that's probably what I've used the most lately is SvelteKit. So what I know there, and mapping it into equivalent kind of an equivalent level of functionality. This is like an off-topic thing. I love that Markdown is processed there. I think I mentioned it earlier, like when I first signed up as a flounder, was something about AsciiDoc and AsciiDoctor.js, and maybe moving that to a JVM, or migrating it, figuring out how to make that there. It's so much more powerful than Markdown. It would be amazing if we could do that. So that might be a down the road thing for me, because there's some pretty big. There's a whole other use case I could see for this, which is for documentation and doing like technical documentation and docs websites and stuff. And a lot of people use Markdown and then try to find all the extensions they need to handle all the extra capabilities, but.
So is there a node implementation of it?
Yeah. So it's AsciiDoctor.js is the node implementation.
Oh, .js. No, AsciiDoc.
Well, that's the name of the module, if you just search for AsciiDoctor.js, there it is. Yep.
Okay. Where is it? Is it on NPM right here? AsciiDoctor?
Yep.
Deprecated. Oh, AsciiDoctor core.
That's what it is now. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So here is the GitHub repo. All right. Packages. AsciiDoctor. Okay, there's core. Source. Core API. Let's see what they have going in here.
So I don't think there's a lot of like async await or promises or anything like that. This tends to be a pretty synchronous thing, because you tend to just like read in some string or some file and convert it to the equivalent and then kick it out. Send reply with that data. So
So it's probably. I mean, it looks potentially promise. Nothing promise. Any await. There's nothing. This looks like synchronous code already. So it's probably. Very compatible with the JVM already, and how I would manage something like this, and I was thinking of doing this with the Markdown stuff too, is making some sort of Pocket Pages extension architecture where you can pull some other things in if you want the support for them, because I was thinking of taking Markdown out of the core as well. So
that'd be great. Cool. It would be so nice to have it render essentially server side, have that speed of your, server side rendering instead of having to do it in the client. And I'm doing it server side in SvelteKit right now. If you go to the Good Docs, the Good Docs project.dev. That's a SvelteKit site. I think it's the Good Docs, but. If you go to like Good Docs project.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, right. Yeah, I was in here. Is this you, or is this just?
Yeah, I'm on the project steering committee and on the tech team. So I built the website with the design of the site is by our UX and outreach working group, but the code and everything is I wrote, and it's SvelteKit. And so this is all AsciiDoc and. Tailwind. I would say AsciiDoc is the source files. This is on GitLab. If you go to gitlab.com/tgdp, the Good Docs project.
I just saw it in there right here. Yeah.
And then the project under that is website. So under the org. We do offer templates, like documentation templates, but so this is the SvelteKit site. And so if you were to go under like source and then content, all of the
ADOC,
these are just a bunch of ADOC files. Most of these don't really take full advantage, but what you'll notice is like there's some front matter that's used at the top to help drive like some of the content. It always renders these without if you switch to the code view, you can see it a little more clearly that there's like
Sorry, where's the
hit
code
the
view
toggle.
right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So there's like YAML front matter that's used to drive some of the components, and then there's like content sections and stuff like that. So, for example, like content home, if you went back up to the content folder under source.
Content.
Yeah. And then home.adoc.
Home. Okay.
And then code view. Yeah. So we're using like blocks layout. We have this kind of like block structure at the top that has these design components. So there's like a hero component that has data like title, subtitle, video, image, whatever. And then there's an announce component and all of that. So then this data in the front matter drives the information in those design elements. And then on some of them, I think it's towards the bottom, there's like one that's a content. The bottom one, block ref content with image. So the only thing we have there is title and an image. And then the content for that block actually comes from line 87 down, and that gets run through the ASCII Doctor parser and spits back HTML that gets basically injected into the content variable.
Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, this is quite a bit different than Markdown.
Yeah, well, so ASCII Doctor doesn't have, it has its own kind of attribute system that's kind of like front matter with variables and things like that. But it also can allow you to put in front matter data like this, like structured data like YAML. So I'm using the YAML and the Svelte side to like go through and pick which component to load, and then pass the data for that block into the component, and then render the component. There's a file that essentially goes through these components and looks at what the block reference is, and then looks it up by name, and then loads a component code. There's a components library, and then it sends the data, passes the data through into the component. So that gives you this kind of modular, you can just change this front matter order or the data in the front matter, and then it updates the design of the page and the components. But there are some longer form content where having the ASCII Doc, so ASCII Doc as a format has lots of features built in that you don't have to do anything. Like it can do footnotes or not footnotes, that's not a great one. Numbered sections automatically. You can do index of figures and index of tables. There's bibliography tools where you can do citations and load from a bibtec file. So there's quite a bit kind of built into that tooling that just works. Tables are a lot easier and more powerful, stuff like that. So for technical documentation, that's what I use that in my day job too at this company called Thunderhead Engineering. So all of our documentation, long form technical documentation is written in ASCII Doctor or in ASCII Doc, and we use ASCII Doctor. So
yeah, very interesting.
It's a nice toolkit for that.
Well, if you ever get far enough to be a Pocket Pages contributor, maybe you can write the ASCII Doc plugin.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see. I'll probably try to do it at some point. So
yeah. Well, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, thank you for the time here, and I'll take a look. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll also probably I'll go through the process of trying to set up a working environment with Gitpod, since I do like working in that toolkit, that tooling. So if I get that figured out, I'll be happy to share it and show how to do it. I may even have questions on like how to spin up a good local version of everything and make sure I have all the data from my PocketHost instance and stuff to be able to work with it. So
yeah. Well, I'm sure I can be most helpful with the code I wrote, and then somewhat helpful with everything else.
All right.
So yeah, this was cool though. I learned a lot of unexpected things just by chatting with you. You know a lot of stuff that it comes from a different direction and focus than I do. So it's been a lot of interesting conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the time and the code and helping out. That's I'm really looking forward to using the system for all kinds of ideas. So we'll see where we go with it. So.
Yeah, if you ever want to jump on another stream, if you haven't, an update, or you make some decisions about your tech stack for the island market, and you want to show us kind of the progress, just let me know.
All right, will do.
All right,
cool. Thanks, Ben. Great talking to you.
See ya.